Hello and welcome back, friends. And here we're going to look at another topic, and that is dividend policy. And before we start solving problems, let me give you a gist of what this dividend policy is all about and why it is important to study the dividend policy of a firm. Now, what is a dividend? Now, dividend refers to that part of the profits of a company or a firm which is distributed by that company or the firm among its equity shareholders. Now, it is the reward of the shareholders for investments made by them in the share of the company. Now, the investors are interested in earning the maximum return on their investments as well as maximize their wealth. And one of the ways of maximizing shareholders' wealth is by maximizing the value of the firm. And how do you maximize the value of the firm? By maximizing the market price of the equity share. All right, don't mind that noise. Uh, it's raining outside and it's raining cats and dogs, so just ignore the noise in the background, okay? Now, so it is important to pay dividends to the shareholders. They need to get their fair share of the profits, but at the same time it is important for the company to retain back some of the profits for future investment and expansion. Now, if the company pays out most of the earnings or the net profits as dividend, then it'll have very little retained earnings to fall back on when they do require investment for further expansion and growth. And thereby the company must rely on external financing, such as issuing new debt or issuing new shares, and that is one costly affair. So it is important that the firm must come up with a dividend policy where they have to determine an appropriate dividend payout ratio or payout rate. And how will they do that? So the company must decide what should be the payout ratio that will maximize the value of the firm, maximize shareholders' wealth, maximize the current market price of the equity share. So it is important that that in the dividend policy we have to look at the relationship between the dividend decisions, the dividend payout ratio, and the valuation of the firm, because the value of the firm can be maximized if the shareholders' wealth is maximized. Now, just like every other chapter or topic, you will have conflicting views regarding the impact of the dividend decision on the valuation of the firm. So here also we have three main proponents of the dividend policy. One is James Walter, the second one is Myron Gordon, and the third one is Merton Miller and Franco Modigliani, commonly known as Modigliani Miller approach. So we will look at how is the market price of the share impacted by the dividend decision or the dividend payout ratio. So we will look at these two groups of theories, where the first one relates to the relevance concept of dividend or the theory of relevance, and the second one is the irrelevance concept of dividend or the theory of irrelevance. Now, according to Walter and Gordon, they belong to that school of thought where they argue that dividends are relevant and the amount of dividends affect the value of the firm. In other words, there is such a thing called an optimal payout ratio. Now, according to James Walter and Myron Gordon. But you also have the irrelevance concept of dividend, where you have Modigliani-Miller approach, where they argue that the dividend policy of a firm is irrelevant and it does not affect the wealth of the shareholders. They argue that the value of the firm depends on the market price of the share. The dividend decision is of no use in determining the value of the firm. So that is according to Modigliani and Miller. Now here in this video, we will first look at first look at James Walter model, all right, and see how his valuation model affects the value of the firm in the form of market price of the share. Now, these are the assumptions that he's made, and by the way, I am going to share this handout or the notes in the description box. I will provide a link to that. All right, so we are not going to read all these assumptions out here, as well as the valuation formula. But we will later on, after solving the problem, we will see the importance of these implications. So let us first solve a problem. Now, here we have one problem based on Walter's model. Details regarding 3 companies are given below. Those 3 companies are A Limited, B Limited, and C Limited. You have the internal rate of return, or rather the return on investments, right, which is denoted by R. Now you will see here in Walter's model, you have this valuation formula. P is equal to D plus E minus D into R by K, the whole thing divided by K, where P is the price per equity share, the current market price per share, D is the dividend per share, E is earnings per share, E minus D is the retained earnings per share, R is the internal rate of return on investments, K is the cost of capital, or the required rate of return on investment. So we are going to use this valuation formula for solving this problem here. So now this internal rate of return is nothing but R. The cost of capital is K and EPS is E. By using Walter's model, you are required to calculate the value of an equity share of each of these companies when dividend payout ratio is 20%, 50%, 0%, and 100%. Comment on the result drawn. All right. Now here you have 3 companies. You have A Limited, you have B Limited, and C Limited. And like every other video, I always make it a habit that before you solve the problem, try to remember the valuation formula and write that formula. So P is equal to D plus E minus D into R, small r, by small k, and the whole thing divided by small k. Now you'll notice here in this problem, you'll find that for R, for A Limited, it is 15%, right? And K is 10%. So R is greater than K, all right? And now when you come across a situation like this, such a company is known as a growth company when R is greater than K. Now you'll notice here under B Limited, R is equal to K. R is 10% as well as the cost of capital K, that is also 10%. So R is equal to K, and C is R is less than K, a declining firm. All right, there goes the thunder again. Don't mind those noise in the background. Stay with me. All right, let's solve this problem first. Now it says calculate the value of an equity share of each of these companies when dividend payout ratio is 20%. So if the dividend payout ratio is 20%, okay, so if DP is 20%, then the value D will be equal to what? So 20% on what? On EPS. What is the EPS? 10 rupees. So D will be here. So 20% of 10 rupees is 2 rupees. All right. So P is equal to D plus E minus D into R by K divided by K. So what is D here? D is 2 plus E is earnings per share already given, 10 minus 2 again into R. Now what is R? It's 15%. So 0.15 divided by K. What is K? It's given again, 10%. So 0.10. The whole thing divided by 0.10. All right. So let us calculate. Where is my calculator? Okay, here it is. All right. So 10 minus 2 is what? Is 8 into 0.15 divided by 0.1. So that is 12. So 12 plus 2 is 14 divided by 0.10. So that is 14 divided by 0.10. It's equal to 140. All right. Same thing for B Limited when R is equal to K, when the DP ratio is 20%. So here also D will be equal to rupees 2. So P is equal to 2 plus 10 minus 2 into, now R will change. R here is 10%. So 0.10 divided by 0.10. All right. The whole thing divided by 10. So when you solve this, you will get rupees 100. Same thing for C Limited when DP ratio is 20%. Here D will be 2. So P is equal to 2 plus 10 minus 2 into, now R will change again. What is R here? Now R is lesser than K. Now R is 8%. So 0.08 divided by 0.1. The whole thing divided by 10. So when you solve that, you will get rupees 84. Okay. Next, if the DP ratio, now they've asked, right? If the DP ratio is 20%, 50%, 0%, 100%. So we are done with 20%. Let's look at 50%. 50%. Then D will be equal to rupees 5. So P is equal to 2 plus 10. No, it is not 2 anymore. Wait, sorry. Since D is, it's not going to be 2, it's going to be 5. 5 plus 10 minus 5 into 0.15 divided by 0.10. The whole thing divided by 0.1. That equals to rupees 125. Okay. So again, same thing here. When D is equal to rupees 5, P is equal to 5 plus 10 minus 5 into okay. And you will notice one thing. When you solve this, you will notice that irrespective, regardless of what the DP ratio is for a normal firm where R is equal to K, you will notice that the market price per share P will remain the same. So here will also be 100. All right, and I will tell you later on why. Now D, same thing for C Limited. D is equal to 5 rupees. So find out what is P. P is equal to 5 plus 10 minus 5 into, now 0.08 divided by 0.10. The whole thing divided by 10. When you solve this, you'll get rupees 90. Now next is, if the dividend payout ratio is 0%, then D will be what? Obviously it'll be rupees 0. So that means the firm does not pay dividend at all. So P here will be equal to, D is 0 plus 10 minus 0 into 0.15 divided by 0.10. The whole thing divided by 0.10, and you will get rupees 150. Same thing here, when D is equal to rupees 0, P is equal to 0 plus 10 minus 0 into 0.10 divided by, and again you will notice that here also P will be equal to rupees 100. Okay, D is equal to rupees 0 for C Limited. So find out what is P. So 0 plus 10 minus 0 into 0.8 divided by 0.10, the whole thing divided by, you'll get rupees 80. All right. If DP ratio is 100% now, then the value of D will be what? Yes, it'll be 10 rupees. Okay, so P is equal to 10 plus 10 minus 10 into 0.15 divided by 0.10. The whole thing divided by 0.10 is rupees 100. Okay, when D is rupees 10, remember DP ratio of 100%. So P is equal to 10 again into 10 minus 10 into 0.10 divided by 0.10. The whole thing divided by 0.10. My gosh, that's a lot of number 10s. Will give you rupees 100. D is equal to rupees 10. P is equal to, again, lots of 10s. 0.08 equal to rupees 100. Now you notice here, for a normal firm where R is equal to K, regardless of the DP ratio, whether it is 0% or 50 or 20 or 100, you'll find that the price per share remains the same at 100. The only difference is for a growth firm and a declining firm. So what is the implications here? The implication is this, that when the rate of return is greater than the cost of capital, that means when R is greater than K, the price per share increases as the dividend payout ratio decreases. Alright, so you'll notice here for a growth firm that as the DP ratio increases, from 0 to 20 to 50% to 100%, you will notice that the price per share has actually decreased. Alright, now for a declining firm, it's just the opposite. When the DP ratio is 0% and as it goes up to 20, 50 and 100, you'll notice that the price per share has also increased. And for a firm where R is equal to K, the price per share does not change with the varying changes in the DP ratio. So what is the implication here? Thus, in a nutshell, the optimum payout for a growth firm is nil. Now, why is the optimum payout for a growth firm nil? It's because, see, what is the objective of the firm? The objective of the firm is to maximize shareholders' wealth. How do you maximize shareholders' wealth? By maximizing the market price of the share. So if in this case, by paying less dividend, the market price per share increases, then the optimum